The atmosphere inside the congressional hearing room was electric from the beginning. Judge Brett Kavanaugh had returned to Capitol Hill to testify in a heated session on judicial ethics. And all eyes were on the confrontation many had anticipated. A face-off with Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Known for her fierce oratory skills and no-nonsense approach, Crockett came prepared. Tensions had already been running high as partisan divisions surfaced early in the session. But no one could have predicted how quickly things would escalate. Kavanaugh, clearly agitated, fired off a sarcastic remark aimed directly at Crockett, questioning her understanding of constitutional law. "Perhaps you need a primer on separation of powers," he said with a smirk. Gasps filled the room. Jasmine. Crockett didn't flinch. She leaned into her mic with calm precision and responded, "Judge Kavanaugh, I not only understand the separation of powers, I live it every day by holding people like you accountable." Her voice was steady, but her words cut like a blade. The audience, made up of both citizens and members of the press, reacted immediately. Some clapped, others murmured in surprise, and a few even stood up in stunned approval. But she wasn't finished. Crockett then cited specific Supreme Court cases that had exposed judicial overreach, including those where Kavanaugh's opinions had been publicly criticized. It was a masterful demonstration of both legal knowledge and rhetorical prowess. The dynamic in the room shifted dramatically. Kavanaugh, visibly unsettled, tried to deflect with legal jargon, but Crockett countered each point with meticulously researched facts. "When you weaponize your robe to undermine civil liberties, that's not justice. That's bias," she said, referencing a recent ruling on voting rights that had disproportionately affected minority communities. The judge attempted to interrupt, but Crockett raised her hand. "Let me finish," she said firmly, and the crowd erupted again. Her composure was unshakable, and her command of the facts was undeniable. For every jab Kavanaugh attempted, Crockett responded with tenfold clarity. Reporters in the room were already typing feverishly. Twitter exploded with hashtags like #Crockett shuts it down and #Kavanaugh clapback. Clips from the hearing began circulating online within minutes. People across the political spectrum were commenting not just on what was said, but how it was said. Crockett's tone was direct but respectful, passionate but controlled, the exact balance that so many politicians fail to achieve under pressure. And it was that balance that gave her the upper hand. Kavanaugh, despite his experience and stature, looked unprepared for someone who had done her homework and wasn't intimidated. As the exchange continued. Crockett brought out printed court documents and cited them by case number and date. "This isn't about opinions. It's about your record, and it speaks for itself," she said. Kavanaugh's expression shifted from smug to defensive. He tried to assert that her interpretation was politically motivated. She quickly responded, "The law doesn't bend to your politics, and neither do I." Audience members burst into applause. Even some congressional colleagues from the other side of the aisle looked impressed. It wasn't just a takedown. It was a public lesson in accountability. In a bold move. Crockett then read aloud a line from one of Kavanaugh's dissenting opinions, highlighting how it conflicted with his public statements made just days. "Earlier, you said the quiet part out loud in court," she added, "and now you're trying to rewrite history." It was clear she had come not to spar, but to expose. The judge looked flustered, clearly caught off guard by her detailed preparation. Meanwhile, viewers across the country were glued to their screens, watching a historic moment unfold in real time. This wasn't a viral stunt. It was a demonstration of fearless public service. Outside the chamber, reactions poured in. Legal. Scholars praised Crockett's understanding of precedent and judicial responsibility. Civil rights groups hailed her as a guardian of the Constitution. Even moderate voters who had never paid much attention to congressional hearings before found themselves sharing clips and quoting her words. On television, analysts played back the moment when she said, "You don't get to hide behind the bench when you're rewriting the rules." It became an instant classic, a reminder that power can be challenged when preparation meets courage. Despite being under fire, Crockett never raised her voice. She didn't insult, threaten, or grandstand. Instead, she asked sharp, pointed questions, and insisted on full answers. When Kavanaugh dodged, she called it out. "You're not answering because the truth is inconvenient," she said, letting the silence that followed speak louder than any soundbite. The audience's energy fed off her confidence. She didn't just shut down Kavanaugh, she elevated the conversation to a level where evasion wasn't an option. Her calm demeanor, in contrast to his growing discomfort, made the moment even more striking. Asterisk, the hearing ended with Crockett delivering one final blow. "You may sit on the highest court," she said, "but today you were held to the highest standard." She stood up, collected her papers, and walked out to a standing ovation. The image of her walking away while Kavanaugh sat speechless was captured in dozens of photos and shared millions of times. It was symbolic not just of one woman confronting one judge, but of a new political era in which truth and preparation could no longer be brushed aside by rank or privilege. Asterisk, in the days that followed, the media continued to replay the exchange. Editorials were written praising Crockett's mastery of the law and her unwillingness to be cowed. Talk shows debated the broader implications of her statements, while late-night comedians turned Kavanaugh's flustered expressions into punchlines. But beneath the media buzz was a deeper current of respect. People saw something in Crockett that transcended party politics. They saw integrity. She hadn't gone into that room to humiliate anyone. She had gone to speak truth to power, and that made all the difference. Asterisk, meanwhile, Kavanaugh's defenders scrambled to downplay the damage, calling the hearing political theater. But the footage told a different story. This wasn't theater, it was a public reckoning. And it wasn't just about him. It was about the broader question of who gets to make the rules and who is brave enough to challenge them. Crockett's performance became a symbol of democratic accountability in action. She reminded the country that oversight isn't optional, and that no one, not even a Supreme Court justice, is above being questioned. Asterisk, for young aspiring leaders, especially women and people of color, Crockett's performance was deeply inspiring. She didn't just defend her intelligence, she showcased it. She didn't demand respect, she earned it. In every word, in every pause, she communicated that courage isn't loud, it's deliberate. That justice isn't abstract, it's built on facts. And that leadership means showing up when it's hardest. Her example set a new bar for how to conduct difficult conversations in the public eye with clarity, integrity, and unshakable strength. Asterisk, months later, the reverberations of the moment were still being felt. Crockett received invitations to speak at universities, legal symposiums, and international forums. She continued pushing her legislative priorities with newfound momentum. The hearing had become a defining chapter in her career, one that no smear or insult could erase. And it had all started because she refused to be disrespected, and instead demanded accountability with dignity. Her legacy, built in that hearing room, now lived far beyond its walls. Asterisk, and as for the audience that went wild, they weren't just reacting to drama, they were responding to truth. They saw a leader who stood firm against condescension, a voice that cut through the noise, in a moment that reminded everyone watching that courage is still alive in American democracy.